iAgency podcast with your host, Noah Ravoy.
Welcome, everyone. We live in a society that encourages us to take the easy way out, to do things that blame other people, and then to be a victim. But not everyone chooses that pathway. And today, my guest is Ed Latimore. He's a man who chose to make the life he wanted to make out of a rough start. Thanks for joining me today, Ed.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Always a good time to see you. Last time I saw you was over in Carcavelos, I believe.
Yeah, over in Portugal, enjoying the sun.
Yeah, very different time now than it was last time I was there. So you live there still? So
yeah, still living there. We still occasionally have sun, although you haven't missed too much sun the last few weeks.
Oh, right. I heard you guys had a serious cold snap.
Yeah, cold and rainy. But it is interesting because it's a country where everyone spends they really like to spend their time outside at shops and coffee shops and eating out. And so this last month, I think everyone they've relearned what it means to be at home. It's kind of a strange thing. It's really true. I think all of the Southern European countries, they have like a cafe culture. And
it's really, really nice. It's one of those things, when I came back, I was telling people living there, my body weight reset itself to like 215, 220. Right now I'm sitting around 225, 230 in that range. And I'm not I'm lean, like I'm not weight, but it's because like every day without thinking, you're putting miles on your feet, 1 to 2 miles a day walking, just going to the market or going to the metro and then back and forth, walking up and down the hills, going to the beach, just taking walks. And then the food is different as well. Very, very different than America. I wish everyone got to experience a different place, not even, necessarily Portugal, but just to see that America is not, not even, a buddy of mine described it best. He said, America's funny. You guys are the best, but you're not really the best. And
we have these walkable cities here, and even this is a big city, and it's still walkable. I can walk to everything that I need.
Yep.
I heard I go in a car like every 2 weeks.
Yeah, you really don't need it. The train system is great. The bus system is great. I guess there's those like tram things that are kind of like trolleys. It's great. And then on top of that, it's a very walkable area. And then up and down the hills, once you get used to it, like I'm not gonna lie, like the first time I went, that kicked my ass. Man, I just wasn't used to those hills. Then I go back a year later, and after a month, I can walk up to King George's Castle or St. George. I can't remember King or Saint. You know what I'm talking about. We're like, that's a steep hill if you're not like you're probably used to it by now. But for newcomers, that is not a light walk. But then you get used to it. It's just life.
You probably noticed that here we see, there'll be old people, and they're in their 80s and 90s, and they walk everywhere. They live on their own. Excuse me. They live on their own. They walk everywhere. They do their own shopping.
Yep. And you know what you never see, which is crazy. You see it all the time here, because here in the States, I live like literally a stone's throw from a Walmart. Like I could go out on my balcony with a good enough arm, hit a Walmart that I can see. And you see so many people in these motorized scooters who are not old and who are healthy otherwise, except the weight, and they've just kind of went by. Like I remember I did not see. Yeah, you're right. I don't think I never saw a motorized scooter. And as far as an old person, nah. I mean, they're everyone's moving, everyone's eating okay. A lot of very family oriented culture, and that helps a lot too.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about it is, I had a friend. She had 12 kids, and so she's going to cross the street with her kids. And I think like 10 of them were still at home. She had like a few older kids and then like a whole bunch of younger ones. She had a little break in between. And she'd go to cross the street with 10 kids under the age of 14. So the oldest one, he helps a couple of brothers in the cross. Random people would go like, hey, you want some help? And they just, hey, I'll grab a can and help you walk across the street. And there was a joy in helping. I've seen, time to time, it's not just hills. But there's nothing flat or level in the entire country. Everything is crooked. and slippery.
Yeah, that's true. Very crooked and slippery, and the
Yeah.
sidewalks are very narrow. I remember feeling very paranoid that I might get hit by a runaway car.
Yeah, well, and it's not a unfounded paranoia either. But you'll see sometimes, an older person coming back from shopping, they'll use these little pull carts and slip, fall down. Immediately, someone comes out to help her up.
It's
Immediately.
very, it's so awesome and so different than the West. I mean, you haven't been to America in probably a long time, I bet, and you're not really missing anything. There's some things here that, like, because I am heavily American, I have a heavy, my family's here and stuff, so I do miss that. But you just go to another place and build, like, when I go back, that's one of the things I'll do is put a lot more time into building network and connection there, so that it's easy. And, in Lisbon, I actually wasn't that bad. We actually knew a few people, but in Porto, we didn't really know anybody. Just kind of being like prolonged tourist, and next time I think we'll take a different route.
Yeah, if you end up in the area where I am, it's incredibly friendly, and about half the people here are not Portuguese, so it's very easy to just go up to people and say hello. Almost everyone here speaks English. But one of the interesting things is that unity in the community, even with people they don't know, because they're not going to know that person they saw fall down.
Right.
And immediately, and it's not just one person; there'll be several rush out to help. It's that there is a sense or a spirit of community responsibility for helping each other out. It's not that, hey, why aren't you helping that person? It's, oh, I should go help somebody.
And you really sense that. One of the things in terms of the community that stood out to me, that here in America, we make a big deal about our treated a certain way. We would be at the metro, it'd be like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and there'd be like kids, not like little kids, but like clearly, if we were in the States, teenagers, you'd be like, what are you doing? And they're just, being kids and hanging out and socializing. People still go outside and just hang out, and it's not well, there you go. The problem was, in my mind, I thought something weird was going on because I'm looking at it from my perspective, and it's just life there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have friends that live near the beach, and talking to the kids, they came from the UK, and they came from an area in the UK where kids couldn't go walking around for safety reasons.
Yeah.
And they said, we came here because our children can walk from our house to the beach without us, like 10, 12-year-old kids can walk from the house to the beach, go sit on the beach, collect some sun, play in the little tide pools, and we don't have to like supervise them 24/7. They go with a group of 10 or 20 other kids. They hang out with these kids. They don't get in trouble. They're not doing anything wrong. We know all the neighbors know us. And it's kind of like 1950s America.
Yeah. One of the cool things about COVID, and there's not many, but one of the cool things is that it, while I feel bad for the Portuguese economy in this regard, you got to understand, Portugal was set to, for the first time in history, have more than 1 million Americans visit in 2020 or 2021. I think the projections are 2020, and that's crazy because it's like, as far as I'm concerned, it is like a gym. Like, I don't want us to come over in mass and discover, the Brits already come, but they all go to the south. Like, when we were in Algarve, they were like, why are you speaking Portuguese, man? Like everyone speaks English. I'm like, oh, my bad, dude. But in Lisbon, it's not like that. In Portugal, because like Americans really don't go to Portugal, it was very not diluted, very pure, pure. But there were no beach, but there was a beach, but it was not as warm as we. I think one of the days we were there, it was like 70 degrees in January, just hanging out, and that was like a little extreme, but not that extreme, compared to the normal.
Yeah, my wife will go on the very coldest days of the year, and it's I'm not as familiar with Fahrenheit anymore, but it'll be like 10 degrees outside above.
Yeah. And Tim, when I was there, I never seen it. Well, at night a few times, but during the day, it was usually between 15 and 16.
Even in the winter.
And that's pretty nice, man. And it was cool. Is like I actually don't know how that translates. You know how I know that? Because when you take the train from from Lisbon out to the Lisbon to Cascais line, when you take the train, I mean I'm guessing it's on all trains. It shows the temperature at the top, so I just got used to seeing, okay, 18 and knowing what that feels like, and 15, and that's a fairly big, well, not fairly big, but definitely noticeable. Certainly more noticeable than a 3 degree difference in Fahrenheit. But between 18 and 15, you feel that. And then like when it's like 12, you're like, yo, it's like night cold.
Oh yeah. Well, my wife will go when it's 10 degrees and she'll have a swim in the ocean. And that's like she'll get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go and have a quick swim in the ocean and then come back home before everyone else gets up, because it's her like time to refresh herself in the morning, and that's her coffee in the morning. Well, she'll have a coffee too. Yeah. We always joke, Portuguese, they have to have like an IV drip of coffee. It's all day long. It's always good time for coffee, but
always.
Yeah, it is an amazing country, and that desire to have a civic, the kind of the feeling of brotherly affection they have to the other people within the country. And it's not just Portuguese for other Portuguese.
Yeah.
As a foreigner, man, if I ever need help, anybody I ask is going to be super friendly. I never asked anyone, oh, can you give me directions or whatever, and got a bad response ever.
Yeah, there's not really. I don't. I actually had one weird experience, but I'm sure that was crazy. But I think about Oh man, I was just about to talk about it, but I'll tell you the weird experience first. My mom, when we went to see 1917 when it came out, the Sam Mendes movie. It came out when we were there, and we went to go see it at the movie theater at the very end of the line, right across the street from out. And I'm naming specific places for people watching because I know that like you live in the area, so you probably know when I say the mall at the end of the Cascais line, like right when you get off, you might know, but you might. And there's a movie theater right there, ground level. So we went there, and we walk in, and some people were sitting there, and they moved, and so we were like, oh, we're gonna take where they were sitting because there were better seats. And I'm eating the popcorn and hanging out, and the woman starts yelling something at me in Portuguese, and I was like, I know that tone, it's not nice. And so I told her, no follow up with the gays, and she was like, do you have to eat popcorn? So like, why'd you move? That's right. She asked me why I'm moving. I was like, oh, it's a better seat. She was like, the smell of popcorn. She was trying to explain. I was
She's
like,
at a movie theater.
oh, it gets better. So I was like, all right, whatever. I just let it go. And then a younger couple comes in, and they sit, and we're watching a movie, and it's all good. And about 15 minutes in, she yells, and she's like, "You have to eat so loud at the people in English." And I was like, wow, very very crazy. but that was, that was the worst, and clearly she was not playing with a full deck, because that, go to a movie theater and complain about the popcorn, that's not it's not normal.
Yeah, I've had the odd person in Lisbon. It's usually old men, and occasionally I've had a woman say this. They're like, too many foreigners in this country, and pointing at me. Like, I speak Portuguese, so I understand what they're saying. They're like, there's too many foreigners in this country. And I will have like said something in English, maybe to my wife or whatever. And that's how they knew. I mean, obviously I'm not Portuguese by looking at me, but they'd say, oh yeah, there's so many foreigners in this country. Why don't they speak our language and like this? And I'm not totally pissed off at them about it. Because I do understand, housing prices in Lisbon have like quadrupled in 20 years.
Oh, and
like
Airbnb has ruined that. I think when we were there, we were actually at a talk the BBC does in different countries, different cities, and one of the things they handle, they bring in like different experts in different areas of the government and policy, and people ask questions, and one of the questions was like, what are we going to do about Airbnb? It's really kind of jacking up where to live, and I guess they finally like dealt with it. But yeah, because it's a gym, like everyone wants to go and live there, and the price difference. I mean, I don't think about money here, but I really didn't. I mean, think about it there. It's so cheap, and I'm earning dollars living, which is like the dream. But it's a dream because of geo arbitrage. And what people forget is that in geo arbitrage, somebody has to pick up what is discarded. And those are not the winners. You doing the discarding in terms of from high value to low value and getting what it's worth there is great. I mean, the food price is incredible, but like you go and you got to remember for them. I had a friend and she was like, how are you enjoying my country? I said, it's great. It's so cheap. And she goes, well, it's not really cheap for us though. And I was like, it's right. Now I feel like an asshole for saying that, but
Yeah, there are neighborhoods in like Alfama where I remember Pat walking through there and talking. This is before Airbnb, and I've been here like 20 years. So this is before Airbnb really was a thing, and there was almost no tourist rentals in Alfama. Because I talked to the lady and I'm like, so I was curious. I'm like, have you lived here all your life? She had an Alfama accent. It's a neighborhood that has its own accent. That's how different they are. And she's like, yeah, this house, she was standing in front of a house. This house has been in my family for 800 years that we have documented.
Wow.
And she's like, that's pretty much all the homes here have been owned since the modern re-Christianization of Lisbon after the Muslim reconquest. So they retook it back from the Muslims, and that neighborhood, people are tracing not that long after that. Well, it was a couple hundred years after that is when the first documents for land deeds and stuff started to be made in the area. And these people have been there for 1,000 years in that neighborhood. Not just 1,000 years there, but that their neighbor has been their neighbor's neighbor, like for generations. What is that? That'd be like 50 generations living in the neighborhood.
And in that area you're talking about, I'm assuming I got it right in my mind. Like you can't, I mean, you can drive, like people do it, but you can't really, like it's that old. The street exists, but it's more like walk here and pay attention because sometimes someone will drive, but you can't really drive, and it's really beautiful, and it's a shame in one regard. I don't feel like I am that tourist because I have a pass because my now fiance is a citizen and was born and raised there, so I don't feel like I'm intruding, but I can understand how that feeling comes up. I got a friend who was living there and he went the other route. He was like, he got a nice, clearly not an Airbnb, pays the lease, very expensive, down by quite literally right across the street from the I remember when I was there was a police riot there. I don't remember what it's called though. So not police riot, but a police protest march and everything. So yeah, really nice area, but expensive even by American standards, and that's one way to not drain the area.
Yeah, it's mostly the affordable starter housing for young people where there's a lot of contention. Because can you imagine if you were raised in that neighborhood that your ancestors had been in for 1,000 years and you couldn't afford to live there when you got married?
Yeah, that's right. And what another thing Americans don't understand, and I don't know how this is in the UK, is the concept of minimum wage is not the same in other places as it is here. Here we look at minimum wage as this thing that like you can't do anything, and that's why you are paid that. Like, so go get more skills, increase your value, and you'll get paid a higher wage. Meanwhile, minimum wage in a place like Portugal is like, well, this is what everyone makes when they're starting out. Okay, and depending on your skill set, you might make a little more, but you won't make less. And that's
you could be a recent university graduate in like engineering, and you're still going to get minimum wage.
Yeah, and people don't grasp that. This is one of the gift of traveling is that it just gives you a different perspective on your own situation locally by seeing how things are handled internationally. And you get the same thing when you study another language, right? You should anyhow, when you study another language, you should get more insight about your own language. Well, the same thing happens when you study another culture intensely, not just as a book reader, though that can help, but living there, hearing the problems, seeing the pros and cons, it makes you appreciate your situation a lot more. Like one of the things that when I talk about the values and advantages to being overseas, Americans are always very quick to bring up the tax rate. And I'm like, you got to understand, Yeah, they take a lot more, but they get a lot more, like a lot more. Like we don't get a thing for taxes. Like it's comical what we don't get. I went to I had to go to the ER. Wow, it'll almost be an anniversary because um, I went to the ER on my birthday last year,
Oh
and
yeah, I remember that. You were pretty sick.
very sick. Checked into the ER. They gave me medicine, IV me, spent the night there, got sent home. Got sent home with a 125 euro bill, and they were worried. We were like they weren't sure. Like, are you gonna be okay? Give it to your insurance company. And I'm like, that's possible. When I bring that up, I'm like, that's possible because the tax are distributed a little differently. Now, granted, I was in the public hospital, and I hear like, they're talking about how things are going right now with COVID, and I guess I read that there was like they were able to count the number of ER beds left in the country, and it was not like a significant amount, like less than 50.
There is they are under equipped as far as beds go. They're pretty good with like MRI machines and everything,
Yeah.
but
Like
they're
in other
under.
words, like when things are going well, they go really well. Like no real issues. But when something crazy comes along, it's crazy.
Like
But
I never go to the public except for the kids, because little kids get like the highest level of treatment here. They treat little kids really well, better than most private hospitals will in other countries. So if you're under 5, it's like gold.
the
And
whole country, which is great. Like I don't know, like if anyone watching this is like considering a relocation, but that is one of the best, if not the best things about the country is how well it treats children. Like
yes,
it's very children are education wise, everything is like it's just assume that you're gonna take them places, as opposed to it being a separate thing for kids.
and
So
people
that's
are
great.
just friendly to children. Like they'll smile at them, they'll wave at them. They will. Kids make noise, and people will just smile about it. Nobody gets freaked out. I got 3 kids, and they're stomping around on the floor. I'll see my neighbor, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I hear that once in a while, but that's just normal. That's what kids do." And you
Yeah.
know, that is not normal behavior in a lot of places. If you're in Germany, for example, there's a lot of restaurants you can't take your kids in.
No
It's like no
kidding.
pets and no kids under the age of 12. And here it's like, well, you half the time you can take your pets in too. You can take, there's nowhere. I've never seen anywhere here that said you can't bring your kids in.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful thing, and I hope our values. Well, they've been resisting everyone else's values for so long. It's amazing. Knew nothing about like Portuguese history before I was there. 6 months. That mean I'm probably as good. I know but and if I don't know what the leader is, I'll guess King Alfonso. That's usually yeah. So but I bring that up to say like the very proud of the history there to the point where like you just know it. It's just like intertwined. It's another thing we don't have. We don't have a sense of um, identity, and I get why, right? Like I understand it because we're younger, and our 250 years ago for us is not the same as 250 years ago in terms of a national identity for Portugal. So
Well, it's also difficult to have a national identity when you have hundreds of millions of people, as
as
opposed
opposed to
to
like 10
like,
million,
yeah,
yeah.
10 million. The borders have been the same for 800 years, roughly, or more than that, actually, more like 900 and something years. Borders have been the same. They have put a lot of effort. They've one of the things that really unites any group of people is a common enemy, and that's misused sometimes, but it also can be very valuable. So they so often had to compete with the Spanish for resources, for access to the ocean, this kind of stuff. And so that caused the Portuguese to cooperate because they were the little guy. They were the underdog. And the
Well,
underdog, they can't have any like disunity between them, or you just get smashed. You got to be more
exactly.
united.
You see the exact same thing in Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, or rather with the Jewish population, very small, always in a part of the world where they're surrounded by their enemies. Well, we don't so we're not gonna let's squash any internal beef because we don't have time for that. Instead, we need to focus on dealing with everything around us, and the result is you look at the disproportionate representation of the Jewish population in many high areas of society. When people go, "Oh, there's conspiracy," I'm like, nah, I mean, maybe not, but I'll tell you, if there is one, it's spurned by being a minority surrounded by people who want to kill you from the dawn of time. That'll get shit right real quick. Like you will, or you won't survive. It'll be one or the other. So
Yeah, everyone's worried about avoiding. Let's avoid discomfort. Let's avoid bad times. Let's avoid suffering. And it's like, no, no, no. I can understand that. If in a lot of see, this doesn't come up for you and I. We don't think of it that way because we're different kind of men. But if you know that that's probably going to kill you, then you're going to be trying to avoid it. But if you know that you're the kind of guy that when the suffering comes, no, that's going to make me stronger. I'm going to drop all the crap I don't need. It's probably going to clarify my choices in my mind, and I'm actually going to be better off suffering than I was avoiding the suffering.
Fundamental attitude difference between guys like us and most people. I have a friend, and he tried to describe the difference between us. One day he said, Ed always looks for ways to where he can do something, and I always look for ways that I can't. I was like, that's really interesting. Um, and whether that's accurate or not completely is another conversation. But what it did get me thinking about was that once you accept that there's going to be a certain level of difficulty on your path, you have to kind of stop caring about it and just prepare for it. Like I don't I don't think about how hard it'll be to sustain my life in COVID times, for example, right? All I know is I have to do it. So let's figure out how to do it with the skill set I have. And same thing with like any life changes I made, in particular the biggest ones 7 years ago, which have just continued to cascade and led me to where I am now. It wasn't like, oh man, this is rough. Let me see if I can work around it, because because I'm not gonna lie, it's not like I came out the womb perfect. You try these things, and depending on how painful the feedback is, you either get it or you don't. And some people have too high of a pain tolerance, which I think is really a comfort enabler. A high pain tolerance will make you become really comfortable if you can deal with the water, if you can deal with a high temperature, but it not changing too quickly, right? Like just gradual discomfort, and you never look around, with this whole frog in the water boiling. But if the slightest change disturbs you and you're like, hold up, this is crazy, then you make changes and you adjust. But not everyone is like that, I found. And when you are like that, when you do go, okay, not going to deal with this, it's coming, and then you start looking for how it's going to come as well. Yeah, then it's a different way to live, completely different. You go looking to fortify yourself and prepare your position as opposed to avoiding any type of intrusion on it. And that's completely different. One by definition is defensive, and the other is going on the attack on a problem before it gets a chance to even gain momentum in your life.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you're trying to get in shape and you're just doing it with no end date in sight, there's no big objective, there's no main goal, it's really tough. But if you got a fight coming up, or you got a marathon coming up, or you got some challenge coming up where there's going to be a pretty clear test because you're either going to pass it or not, you're going to take your training a lot more seriously. You're going to take your diet more seriously. And because you know that some suffering is coming your way. And if you prepare yourself, you're going to suffer either way. But at least if you prepare yourself, you'll get something out of that suffering. Then you're going to approach the entire situation differently. And I'm always thinking, most people, their horizon is to the next meal. That's where their mental time horizon is. And I have a very long time horizon where I'm thinking of, but that even can be a problem because you're thinking so far into the future. Like, I got time to fix this,
Yeah.
And you gotta at the same time, you got to see the close, the medium, and the long, and kind of balance, like cycle through those, because otherwise you're going to make decisions that, you're going to be thinking so much about the future, you're not going to be making the short-term, smaller decisions you need to get to that future.
Yeah, there's a sense of you have to live with a sense of urgency, but it can't be so urgent that you don't think about the next move. So I guess if we're going to use like two different words, you need to live with a sense of urgency, but not alarm. You need to always be looking forward, but not looking so far forward that that you miss the entire that you trip over a crack and fall on something that breaks your neck, looking for something that is not even in your horizon yet. You gotta take it all in, but you simplify your choices. What I found really, it's the weirdest thing, right? So I have like ideas about where I'd like to be in the future. Okay, but they're ideas, and they kind of shape the day-to-day decisions. But what I'm really looking at is, okay, I know in 3 to 6 months, that's like that. What is that? That's 90 to 180 days roughly. Um, that's a significant amount of time to do a thing and then see a result from it. That's also a decent amount of time to look and see what's coming and do something about it. So I think what we have to do is we have to work in a time frame that we can do something with. Too soon, we don't have enough time to react, right? Too far is it's not even real. Like our brains are really bad at this. It's really interesting. They've done a study. They've done studies on this. People are really bad at the future because it's not a thing they can manipulate and see and touch. So to them, it's just never going to happen, right? Um, there's one of my favorite DMX lyrics. He goes, um, he's like, you wake up one day 40 years old. Oh, he goes, life is too short to get caught up in some dumb shit. Wake up one day 40 years old on some bum shit, and that's what happens. You just think, oh, I got time, oh, I got time, oh, I got time, and then, oh, we are here. I thought I had a lot of time. But if you're just constantly reacting, you're never going to have time to plan to move forward. So I find in 3 to 6 months, if you live your life in blocks of 3 to 6 months, you'll probably make significant advances in any area of your life. Absolute longest time frame to plan, 2 years. And like even if you were studying like a collegiate program that requires four, 2 years is enough where you're gonna have to do like preparatory courses that you actually need, not the BS, to make a change. So that's the longest I will plan. But 3 to 6 months, that's like, okay, what do we got to do here? What's the income goal? What's the health goal? What's the relationship goal? What do I want to see? What do I want to do? What can I complete? 3 to 6 months.
Well, and you brought up an interesting point. It's like you want to test to see whether your idea of how you're going to move forward works. So I tell people it's like a hypothesis. You're using the scientific method basically, and you got this hypothesis that your life will be better if you do these things. And there's a basics of science is that the shorter the time period between the hypothesis and the test is, the more tests you can do, the faster you accelerate scientific progress. It works exactly the same in business. You have this minimum viable product concept where you want to test a real simple version of your product, see if anyone wants to buy it, and then maybe you continue to follow that path or not. And if we're planning, this is part of the problem of university. You get a 5-year course, and the things you learn in the first 2 years are obsolete by the time you finish your fifth year.
Yep, way too slow.
Yeah, so it's way too slow. If we were, we should be able to get out of high school. We don't know anything when we get out of high school, basically, because we've just wasted a little more than a decade getting babysat. But you should be that instead of college, wherever you're working, you're getting on the job training and growing.
Yeah, that's I have a friend who's a internet marketer for a company, and she just graduated college, and I remember she was asking my advice about what to study. And when she asked about marketing, I said, don't do it unless they're going to have you studying internet marketing, because the old stuff is kind of obsolete. If you don't touch ads, if you don't touch SEO, if you don't touch paid traffic or anything like that, it's not worth it. And fortunately, that is all they did, and that's smart, because that as a result, she got a job with a fairly prestigious locally. I mean, you can look them up. I won't mention the company, but you can look them up, and they're decent SEO company. But that's because companies work on results. You either you either solve the problem and get paid, and you stay in business, or you don't. So to get hired by someone that does that means that the curriculum that you were working on, and it was all real based. It was all based. Okay, we're gonna test this set out and see how this works, and we're gonna learn what writing draws people in, and engagement and bounce rate. I'm like, okay, if you can't talk about that stuff, you're not ready for the big league, and they prepare. But that is the result of someone, and it's not happening everywhere. I was like pleasantly surprised, shocked when I heard that was how it was set up. Because yeah, you're getting a skill set that is valuable, and you're moving at the right speed. But most of this stuff, I mean, that's a different discussion entirely. The validity of most things you study in college, period. But this was one of the few instances where I was just like, wow, that blew me away to see that happen. More tests in a shorter amount of time, and more, and the quicker you get feedback about the real world and what they want.
Yeah, you mentioned results oriented mindset. I think most people that work for themselves, that's their natural mindset in their life in general. And that's people who are successful at working for themselves, that is, because you have to be results oriented. And I think a lot of people, the reason they fail trying to start their own businesses is because they do it because they like it. Oh, I really like cooking. I'm going to start a restaurant. Oh, I really like doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to start trying to sell that thing. And it's like, no, results. And by results, I mean how much money is flowing into your bank account. And if you can't make money come in, what you're doing, you want to know about that as soon as possible before you waste too much time. And people just generally aren't that results oriented. If their boss isn't telling them what result to get, they can't figure it out on their own.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, I would ask people like, "What would you do if you weren't working?" And a lot of people didn't know. They had no idea because I, I think the self-employed person is unique. The more I learned, I used to think everyone wanted that level of freedom. Now I know that most people just kind of want some direction. They don't want to feel lost, and they don't want to feel aimless, and they need a purpose, because I think all humans need a purpose. But they don't want to find it. They don't want to take the risk to live it. They just really want to be told what to do. And we're different because it's not that we resist being told what to do, because I tell people in a heartbeat, if you give me a great mission and I like it, I will be all over, because I can contribute and I'll gain purpose from it, and my skill set matches it, and I can be happy and provide value, right? But we're not when we're awake. That's the best way to put it. You wake up. You're not operating on autopilot. You're not just moving around. It's like, okay, um, how valuable is this task? How aligned is this with my purpose? Because you meet different. We'll just use entrepreneur, self-employed interchangeably. You meet different entrepreneurs, and not everyone is rolling in the dough, but they are rolling. You don't meet too many entrepreneurs. I've yet to meet one who is fundamentally unhappy in a chronic state, i.e., depressed. Right? You don't really meet any of those people. It's very hard when you have a purpose and agency, and every day you kind of got to wake up and figure out what you're going to do, and you have a real deadlines you have to set, not deadlines someone else gave you, but like for example, the next project. No one's giving me a deadline. I could not release or finish the thing for another 365 days, another year. But imagine what that's going to do to my income, and then I got other problems. Right? So these are self-imposed deadlines, but the deadlines out of necessity. They're not arbitrary. They don't feel like someone just handed them to me. There's agency.
Well, and when you work somewhere and they hand you an objective, or your company has a mission, that mission is, especially nowadays, most companies' missions are pretty wishy-washy. I mean, even Google, they stopped the "don't be evil" thing.
Yeah.
That's making judgment call decisions there. I don't know. We're going to stop doing that. But you get this mission from the company, and it's usually so hollow and uninspiring and uninteresting and boring. it's really boring. But you work for yourself, you probably have an awesome mission.
Right.
You probably have something, like I know what you're doing and what I'm doing really makes men's lives better. You know, I also coach women too, so women and men. It really makes people's lives better. I have people, you know, telling me, "Oh yeah, I got married. You know, thanks. I never thought I'd get married until I got coaching with you, and I like figured out how to change my life in the way that I wanted." And you know, men that are their marriages get better because now they have agency to, you know, deal with all of the things that come at them, and so they're keeping frame. And I mean, this is exciting. This isn't like, you know, build more of this, build more X's. We need more X's. You know?
No, and what you found. So, what is the I can't remember where I read this, but the ideal job has 3 qualities. It has autonomy. It has, you know, you work for yourself basically. It has complexity. The problems are not simple to solve. They really require some brain power, some resourcefulness, specialized experience or skill. So you've got autonomy, you've got complexity, and you've also got scale to effort in terms of reward. So it's not, you know, someone goes, you're fixed at $20 an hour, and it doesn't matter how hard you work, it's all you're gonna get. Unless you work more than 40 hours in the US, and then we got to pay you time and a half because the government says so. No, you want an extra $1,000 this month, you better go out there and figure out how to make it. You want to take time off, well, either you got a passive system set up or you just going to miss the income. But either way, you are in complete control of how you get paid. And when you have those 3 things, autonomy, complexity, and scale to income or scale to effort, then how could you be unhappy? Like, no matter how much because everything is in your control, and that's what I think people don't want. They're afraid of the control. When you have control over your own life, it comes with a great reward. And that reward is, you know, I'm sure that, you know, there's not really any sense of, or rather way fewer cases of any kind of depression. And you probably are financially going to be, well, not necessarily, but you have the ability to be financially stable and everything. And you're happy no one controls your time. The flip side, the risk, and people who look at it and they go, this is what can go wrong. Well, man, you can have a month where you don't make any money. And the first time that happens, you're like, whoa, right? And if you don't have the stomach for it, you're gonna leave the game. You could fail. You know, if you ain't got the stomach for it, you're gonna leave the game. You could not work. That's another big deal. Like, some people just don't do the work because no one's telling them to. There's no carrot hanging out over their head, and it's like, get to the next 2 weeks, get the payday. And
well, even that, it's most people are almost as motivated by the threat that comes from behind, by the stick as well. And
right.
Like, the successful entrepreneurs, they wield that stick on themselves. And you know, the you work at a you know, if you can't motivate yourself in that way, you're just not going to do the work.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard, like I tell people all the time, this is not for everyone. In fact, this really isn't for most people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you gotta know yourself, and you have to know what's important to you, and not what everyone is saying is important, but you really gotta know. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I have a friend, you know, brilliant. In fact, the joke is that, you know, she's got the same IQ as me, so she should be just as smart. That's the joke. And but she has a completely different personality and set of goals and values. So what she does is a very safe, secure, high-paying job as a pharmacist. And you know, it's basically customer service. Here's the schedule, show up, boom. But it's fine. Like, I would never want it, right? But she's happy. And
Yeah.
and one day she says, she's like, I see, you know, the freedom, but not gonna lie to you, what you have to do looks kind of nerve wracking. And I'm like, really? What you have to do looks nerve wracking to me? But everyone sees it differently, and it just depends on your makeup. But if you want this, and I think people want the reward. That's everyone though.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to look beyond that, you got to ask yourself. You don't even have to be that smart, man. I know some straight duds, man. They're making money because it's a. I think personal. I think attitude. What is that old cliche? Uh, Attitude or aptitude determines what you can do. Attitude determines how far. Well, you don't really need that much aptitude. I mean, can you use a computer? Can you speak English? All right.
Can you just hustle around it and get it done? Like I know people. The problem is they just can't pick up a phone and call people to start making connections to make their business work. That's
Right.
They're not cut up for it. Then, I growing up, I knew this guy Fernando is a really interesting Azorean Portuguese guy, and he was making like 2-3 million a year selling supplements. He was probably about 90 IQ. He's probably about 90 IQ. He was not a bright man, but he hustled all the time. He was constantly hustling, making sure his clients were satisfied. He was constantly asking, "You got anybody else?" Because my dad was always doing the powerlifting and stuff, so he's taking supplements. And he's like, "I got any more powerlifting friends?" And yeah, well, I'll talk to them and see if I can sell it to them. And he was doing directly to the consumer. He even started manufacturing them, having a company manufacture for him. This was not a genius. I mean, his personal life was terrible. He was making tons of money. He used to come to our house and he'd be like, "Can you hold this huge box of money for me?" Because he did it all in cash. It was all in cash. We always said no because I was never sure if it was just supplements or like special supplements. But yeah, he was always running some like little side hustle besides his main hustle too. And the guy was constantly raking in money. His problem is that he wasn't smart enough to hold on to it. So he literally had nothing at the end of every year after making all that money. But he could make it, if he had someone better to help him manage the money. You don't have to be a genius. You got to get out there and do stuff and make it work. And the thing he was good at was learning from he kept making new mistakes, but he learned from
learn from them.
Yeah.
And so smart people, not even smart people, though I think that has something to do with it. But what it really is we're fed a lie. We're fed a lie growing up. We're fed the lie that your intelligence is going to determine like your worth, right? And we first see that in the grading system in school. The idea is, you get these grades, you study hard, and you gotta be kind of smart to do it, right? Or so they tell you, and they don't tell you that directly. What they do is they call you dumb if you don't succeed, which is the opposite. If you don't succeed in that system, you're dumb, and that's the opposite of intelligent. Okay. And then it goes on. You look at the jobs and the ones that pay the most. They come from the guys who got the best grades or studied those subjects, and the guys who didn't were dumb, and so they don't succeed and push in that direction. And for whatever reason, whether it be because lack of personal confidence or lack of knowledge, they never realize that there's another way to go about succeeding in life. So a lot of people look at that system, and that's the system they're born into, and they never free their mind. They never put in a position to free their mind. So they think if I have not succeeded in this system, then I'm a failure. And they also think I have to figure out how to succeed in this system. And this system is not reality, though. It doesn't prepare you for how reality really works. Even in science, most of science is bumping shit up against the wall, and given the intelligent people who devoted their time, so they kind of know the difference of the shit they bump up against the wall with, right? And they've specialized in knowledge, and then that really helps you can move quickly through things. But anyone, I mean, that's how it used to be done, like the internship system. You would show up and be like, I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm going to study under you, and then I'm going to learn directly, which is what medical school is. All that college beforehand is just to kind of weed out the people who probably shouldn't have a scalpel in their hand, right? And who aren't going to be disciplined. But the real learning doesn't start until they're doing all that stuff in rotation, like law school, right? Any professional high level degree, that all starts after you've proven that you can succeed in the system. You're pot committed. You're not going anywhere. You put all this money and time into the system, and very few people ever buck it once they make it that far. One of the notable examples in my mind is Michael Crichton was studying to be a doctor, and turns out he was a damn good writer though, and his book succeeded. And he goes, you know what? I think I'm gonna just pass on this doctor thing. Jurassic Park made $100 million this year. We're gonna be all right. So that kind of now that didn't happen directly in that time moment. The point is that most of us come out and we're plugged directly into that system, and that's all we know. And we become so dependent on what is. I love the Matrix. What is Morpheus say? These people are so dependent, so inert on the system that we're trying to protect them and we're trying to free them, but they view us as the enemy for doing so. And that is exactly where many are in regards to the whole self, the whole high agency thing. Is if
once you have agency, the first part is you have to start recognizing you're responsible for your own problems.
Yep.
And that's real scary. For a lot of us, almost all my clients are on the high IQ side of things, and for a lot of us, the issue is that we're smart enough to fool ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, we're smart enough to fool we could really trick ourselves, and then we're also sufficiently separated from average population that what works for them doesn't work for us, and vice versa.
That's a really interesting observation. I never, that explains some behavior I see from people I consider intelligent, and I'm just like, it's okay. That's interesting. I learn. That's why you go on shows, man, and podcasts. Listen, that's really smart, and then you follow that natural conclusion. You got someone who's smart enough to figure things out to the point where they can trick themselves, which is not difficult, but certainly not easy. Dumb people can't trick themselves, otherwise they would probably do things to not be so dumb. They kind of just accept what they are, and that's another discussion. But when
there comes some humility with that. If you know you're not that smart, there comes some humility with it, and you're like, okay, I'm not that bright. I better be a little more cautious. I better go find, hey, what's always been working? Oh yeah, work hard, get a job, get married, have kids. That sounds great. I think I'll try that.
Let me tell you something. This is nuts. I have this same conversation with a good friend of mine who's brilliant, and he finally wised up after some time. It took a while, but his whole thing, I was like, dude, why are you doing it that way? There's a better, like literally a better way to do it. He goes, I want to figure this out on my own. I know it's a little slower, but I want to do this on my own and figure this out. I'm like, dude, you don't live long enough to make the mistakes somebody spent their entire life figuring out. Finally, he made some changes and is starting to apply them to the career he wants to do it, but he tried to do it his way. And I'm like, bro, you're not, how are you gonna come to what a position of arrogance? But I get how, because when you operate in the world of regular people or normies, whatever word you want to use, you get used to feeling like your method of thinking is superior. And then, but that's in that system. Then you get out into the real world and you think, I still have it. Yeah, I mean, you're still smart, but now you're dealing with a different level of evaluation. It would be like me, Ed Latimore, the boxer, going, I can still throw hands. I can beat a lot of people. I'm gonna just walk in here and I'm gonna try and tap out these black belts in jiu-jitsu because it's all fighting. No, it's now the system. You can't punch people. the system of evaluation is different, and that's a simplistic analogy, but I hope it captures the point. The point is that when you are that smart and you are succeed in this system, and you try to step out and do something different, you don't have the humility. A lot of times you don't have the humility. and you're coming to it with the old rule book. You're in a different world. Like intelligence. I mean, I want to say it doesn't matter, but I know it does. I think the you know what being smart is like. You know what here's what being smart is. Being smart is like a force multiplier, but it's not necessary. Like you need to be able to network. You need social skills. You need to be industrious. You need to be self-starting. You need to be bright enough. Like your intelligence can't hold you back. Like you can't need a goddamn caretaker or something like that. Like okay, if you can live on your own, you can do it. Like you can make money on your own, right? There you go. And you can function. That's the level you need. So what, like an IQ like 90, 85 ish, right? That's base. Anything higher, that just allows you to like do different stuff. That's about it.
Well, I always say it's kind of like if you're blessed with a brilliant mind, it's like having a Ferrari, and so, that sounds great, right? You got loads of power, and yeah, but you get high maintenance. There is a cost to owning that. You cannot drive everywhere. There are places you can't go because you're just not going to fit in there. You're not going to. This is not you. You're going to take it off.
You're going to be a target.
Yep, you're going to be a target. Everyone's going to want something from you, and like the maintenance issue alone. You know, you if you're highly intelligent, you have to take care of that brain. You have to culture yourself, or you're gonna, you know, if you drive a Ferrari slowly,
yep,
that's the most. It's probably I'd rather be in a slow car. If I'm gonna go slow in a slow car, you know, give me a big Cadillac and I'm just going to, you know, cruise around slowly. Other people are more like a Toyota. You know, they're not so powerful. They're not so fast, but which car you want to go pick up groceries in?
Right. Which car do you want to, if you got to go through a shady part of town?
Yeah.
You know, when something goes wrong, which car is going to be easier to fix and cheaper to fix? Everything comes with a cost, and yeah, you're right. I mean, you have to recognize that, and I think the folly of I don't know if you're familiar with Aaron Clary. Aaron Clary wrote a great book called The Curse of the High IQ, and he talks about these problems that when you're smarter than and then look and yes, is it arrogant to write that book? Maybe, right? But it's a problem. It's a problem enough that like it's got
That's like saying all the hardships of being gorgeous. I mean, like
right, right. And you know, but what people forget, you know, that's a real problem to the point where like you look at the reviews, it's got a lot of reviews and people have read it and they're buying it because they recognize that's an issue, and he recognized that too. But one of the things that comes up is you're not like relating to other people. That takes it's a skill and you have to work on it. And people forget that. You can't do anything to increase your your processing power more. I mean, you can like take it up within a certain range that you had naturally, but it's like all limitations. I mean, I can't add more muscle, and my cells are going to let me without some chemicals. It's just how it is. But people forget your social ability can be worked just like that. Your ability to recognize these situations and deal with people, and smart people, uh, like anyone, we find our comfort zone and we want to exist in that comfort zone. And when you're intelligent, your comfort zone is fucking it's intelligent, nerdy shit, man. Books, knowing facts, trivia, whatever, right? That's where you feel comfortable. Stepping out of that is where the problem is. But it's like anybody, it's the same thing. Take somebody who's a extrovert who works through them and tell them, I'm gonna need you to sit down and produce some content where it's just writing and do it solo, and you got to learn how to shut that off and do that. So it was hard for me because I'm naturally that way, and I was when I had to learn to sit and just be like, okay, we got to do work. But there's another thing. There's another characteristic I think of a high agency person: recognizing a weakness, recognizing an inadequacy, and really putting time into it. where the inadequacy is holding you back. I think our goal is not to like turn our weaknesses into strength, but rather make sure that we are not incurring a negative cost for our weaknesses, the severe ones. We don't, in other words, the way I describe my SEO knowledge, I'm not an expert, but the rules are no longer working against me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I always remember that scene from Dirty Harry where he says, man's got to know his limitations. And I actually have that in my book on agency. It's really important for a man to understand his limitations. And some of us that are higher IQ, we start to think we don't have any limitations.
Right.
And we come up across, a great one is we come up across somebody that we think we can talk our way out of a situation. And then we get the crap kicked out of us. And we realize that it doesn't help you to be smart when someone's punching you in the face.
Chris Rock has got a great joke about this in one of his old stand-ups when he was the best, and he's like, what the crazy thing about colleges and the black community, you get more respect coming out of prison than you do coming out of jail. And he's like, oh, you smart. You smart. Let me ask you this. Can you whoop my ass? And I always think about that. He's like, what, you my master now? It's like, you got a master's degree? So it's funny, but it's a different world. All right. Yeah. So one of the reasons I'll take up fighting.
Yeah.
Because fighting is a lot of things. One thing fighting does not let you do is deceive yourself. It does not let you have any type of ego. Like you have it when you fight the guy because you need it, but everything else,
unjustified ego gets corrected quickly.
Yes, that's. I couldn't have said it better. In fact, I'm probably going to quote you on that later. Unjustified ego gets corrected. But one of the things it really forces you to do is it really forces you to get out of your own head and become and I wish I had another word for this, but I'm going to use the best one, and don't take it personally, anyone listening. It forces you to become normal. And one of the things that I was tweeting about this, I said everyone needs some normie hobbies, because the last thing you want to do, you don't want to be so separated from people that you don't understand people, because no matter how high tech this world becomes, until these machines, until it's some Matrix type level shit, you're gonna have to interact with and work with people, and they're gonna have to like you. And if they don't like you, you're gonna have a lot of problems. I'm not saying they gotta love you, but they gotta at least not mind giving you money for service, because a lot of times it'll come down to, I've done it. I think we all have done it. You got two competitors. One guy for whatever reason is more likable, or the other guy is fundamentally dislikable. And even if the price is higher, where you go there, because you're
gonna have to deal with this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a cost to having to deal with an asshole, and I think that's one problem in men's circles, is that it's like there's a nice guy and the asshole, and you don't want to be the nice guy, so you're going to be the asshole, and that's just two ends of a dysfunctional spectrum. Like you can have strong boundaries, you can be disagreeable, and you can do it in a civilized way. You don't have to be an asshole.
Right. And it's like all extremes become indistinguishable eventually. So it's like hot and cold. At the extreme, you can't tell the difference. Being a pushover and being an asshole is no different in terms of the outcome. And that's one of those things, man, like as men develop, we it's not just men, but that's in the context of where we're at talking about it. You realize that you're deficient in one area, and your first response is to take the rubber band approach and go the complete opposite direction with the same amount of force that you were prior to, or the same distance from zero to neutral. And now you've got no more. You've got different problems, same amount, just different. And if you're not intelligent enough to recognize that you don't have enough social savvy and introspective ability, you never make the adjustment. You just oscillate on the extremes. What you have to do at some point is integrate. And you have to go, okay, this works here sometimes, and this works here sometimes. These traits never. And then I got to figure out something new to live daily. Like one of the hardest things to teach a man is to be strong but not an asshole, to be dominant but not domineering. That place is hard because, well, there's lots of reasons. But if we jumped into them, we'll take another show. But a big reason in context to this show is we don't want to exist in an uncomfortable place. Extremes are very comfortable because they're easy. They tell us kind of what to do and all.
Just go harder in that direction if things aren't working right. Just go.
Right.
Oh, everyone thinks you're an asshole. Be more of an asshole.
Be more right, exactly, right. If your girl's getting crazy, your asshole game wasn't on point. Be a bigger asshole, right? But that's not it's not the key, because to move past that is thought. It's not autonomous. That's just another system you get plugged into. And when you step out, you start going, okay, this system has got some things I can take, and this system has got some things I can take. Let me put it together. I don't know if you remember Steve Pavlina. Steve Pavlina was a self-development blogger, and he had a series of posts where he's like, why I don't do this, why I don't do that. And one of the things he talked about is why he doesn't have a religion. And some of the points you agree, disagree with, but the thing that always stuck with me, he goes, when you take a religious system and you immerse yourself completely in that system without question, well, you don't question anything anymore. You don't think. You stop thinking for yourself and you hand it all over to the system. And maybe the system, maybe that's what you need, right? Maybe everything was so messed up that the net gain for you is way greater than it would than the net loss, and you should go for that. Okay. But a lot of people will eventually reach a point, even if they were that person, or they're at the point now where they should not just do that. For them, there's a net loss because they weren't in that bad of a position, but now they're in for a penny and for a pound for the whole system. And if the system's any good, it's going to make sure that you feel like you're in for a penny and for a pound going the whole way. If it's any good, if it's a weak system, you can, do whatever you want.
Weak systems quickly are replaced with strong systems. The strong systems drive out the weak ones, and the strongest system is the least tolerant of dissension.
And what is in modern times in this discussion? What is a great example of a stronger system drowning out weaker ones? The Muslim system is incredible at that. Not a lot of fucking weak. Not a lot of we're going to take this and ignore that. Nah, we're going to stone you regardless. Well, but the idea is the same. You either in or you out. You ain't no half stepping, man. And when you take that mentality, you found a home, you got someone to tell you what to do, but this is off now. It's got to be, because if you exercise, you find that there's inconsistency. So you got to shut up. You got to stop thinking. And it's funny how all these topics intertwine, but it's like. Right now, you talk to anybody and try to have an intelligent discussion with 99% of people about the government response to COVID. Just try to have an intelligent discussion, and you're going to get one or two extremes. You get it's very rare to meet someone who has a nuanced look and can discuss it. It's either you're a killer for not wearing masks, or you're a traitor for not being a patriot and standing up to the mass. There's no effing middle ground. Both are like the moment you take an extreme position, by definition, you have to be wrong because they can't cover everything. There's too much nuance in the world, but people don't see that.
Yeah, there are very few places where we can take an extreme position. Like, I extremely do not want to be around people that want to kill me.
Right.
But when you look at it, it's kind of like, parents making rules for kids. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 rules, the kids, you're not going to have problems. If you're, like 2 or 3 or 4 principles, if you're making huge lists of rules, at some point it's impossible because rules start to contradict each other.
Exactly.
And any system is like that. And, and I know my son's really intelligent. And if I make sometimes temporary arbitrary rules, which, I try not to do that, but occasionally you mess up as a parent. I'll make some temporary arbitrary rule and he will pick it apart. And that contradicts this other thing you told me. And that's different than the other thing. And blah, 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 blah. And I got to go back on it because he's right. And if I force him to do it, I can see the emotional cognitive pain that this is not right. These two things don't meet. And he won't let it go until we make it right. But if you go on principles, it's completely different.
And the cool thing about that, I really I don't have kids yet, but when I have them, I aspire to produce one with that kind of recognition and ability. But that's got to be nurtured, because I feel like to do that is a uniquely child thing to do, because the older you get, depending on your environmental influences, which often will not support that kind of questioning. But the older you get, the harder it becomes. But the kid just hears a thing, references it to the other thing because he doesn't know any better. You're his father, whatever, right? That's what you tell him. And they go, well, but wait a second. And it's not, and from what it sounds like, it's not like he's doing it to fuck with you. Like, no, it's like, here's one thing you said, here's another thing. I can't do both. Make this logically make sense to me.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just trying to figure out the expectation. Once you know that, he just sticks to it. But if you give him two things and it contradicts, it's like, okay, and that's excellent to hear.
Well, he recognized, and I wasn't telling him this, but I speak with him about what's going on and listen to him. And he said, there's all of these contradicting rules about COVID. It's like, wear masks except for when you're here, or then when you're doing that, you don't. And then he says, it doesn't make sense. He says, I don't think they're doing this to protect us. He says, I think that they're trying to make us go crazy with conflicting rules. And that's what happens when you're, if you go into a system, you have to go a bit crazy. If your system is very rigid, you have to go a bit crazy, because that's the only way you can deal with the cognitive dissonance. And as long as your system, as you said, it's better than what you had before, you're okay. Except there will be a cost. There's gonna be a cost at some point. And people leave systems. They don't leave when the cost exceeds the gain. They leave when the pain is so intense that they can't stay in that system anymore.
Right. You study how people end up in cults. Same idea. Like, you're looking at it from the outside, like, this is so crazy. Like, what? But to them, I mean, look at the typical victims of cults. I mean, young, impressionable, usually from somewhat broken home females, very manipulatable minds, where any structure is better than no structure, right? You don't get a bunch of fucking chads in a cult like that. That doesn't happen for lots of reasons, Well,
it's exactly the same. Like, the women go into a cult, men go into a gang.
Right. Because
it's the same. It's the same. It's just that the cult is mostly about speaking and mental and mind manipulation control, and the gang is about physical violence. The other is about mental violence. The others, and the guys are interested in physical violence. So we need the structure. Where are we going to get the structure? Where are we going to get it? We're going to get it in a gang if we don't have a family.
Man, you are speaking facts, man. I never thought of it. I never made that connection. But yeah, oh dude, that's just brilliant. And when you said that thing, well, about you're gonna, some people need the system, right? There's a great one of my favorite movies, Smoking Aces. It's not that great, but it's one of my favorites. Jeremy Piven's character, they're negotiating a deal with him to turn in some of his boys, the feds, and he's like, I'm not going to turn my boys, man. And then a little while goes by, and he's like, well, I'll give you. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was Beans. He was like, I'll give you Beans. He really needs that institutional shit. I think he's gonna do well in prison. Like he needs that. The rest of them you can't have. And I always think about that. Like some people, yeah, they need that, man. Like it changes the whole life.
Yeah,
Whatever that system
absolutely.
is.
I remember I started a gang in school because we had problems with kids from other schools coming and beating the kids in our school up. There were some problems with teachers as well, and they kept wanting like more and more and more structure. And I ended up with about 100 kids in the gang, and they wanted to know where they were supposed to stand and what they were supposed to do and what they were supposed to like, how they were supposed to behave and all these details because they wanted structure. Yeah, thinking back on it, it was mostly the kids that were from broken homes that were most interested in pushing for structure. And I'm like, I don't care what you do. It's just if someone's getting the crap kicked out of them, we break it up. That's all. It was like pretty limited a gang. And yeah, there are a lot of people that can't structure themselves. Their lives are a mess because they don't have structure, and there's no one to teach it to them. Generally in society, it's men that create structure, and we're in the most effeminate society, I would say, in history.
By far.
Yeah.
And I think about why that is. You've seen that meme, that idea, good times create, hard men create good times create, weak men create hard times, etc. And so the idea is that like that's going to circle around. That's the idea. I'm gonna go kind of dark here for a minute. I think first of all, where we're at right now, we're very much in the hard times. But how hard, really? And this is the point I want to make.
I've been
Technology,
eating every single day. It's not been
yeah,
too hard for me.
yeah. Technology is incredible. Like, you mean you're not gonna die of anything? I mean, like, granted, there's some shit that's still gonna kill you, but for the most part, we kind of know what to do if you don't want it to kill you. There are very few surprises in this regard left. Like health is taken care of, nourishment taken care of, clean water everywhere. I mean, people forget, man, that's kind of rare, man. Clean water everywhere, like that's the standard in any developed nation. Okay, so we don't have predators, we don't have problems, and short of I thought what would have to happen to knock us into hard times, the dark ages. And I thought about this long and hard, and we'd have to somehow knock satellites out the sky, right? And then the people who know about that technology, they'd have to disappear, and they'd have to be not stored, because that's what's really changed things, is the ability to send information instantaneously around the world. And all the things that lead up to that, sure, one could argue that technology supports it, but the end result, that combination of physics and electrical engineering and networking, the ability to send information around the world, that's changed the world fundamentally. This is why I say there are never going to be any wars with boots on the ground. We're too connected now. On top of that, now we have drones. We at some point people don't even want to enlist. This for what? you know,
Well,
uh,
even if they want to enlist, they're all out of shape.
Right, they're all out of shape, or drugs with warrants, like things and a record. So it's crazy. Point is, the world is very easy now. It's just not conducive to requiring strength. It's short of like even 100 years ago, man. You had to at least be able to carry some wood back to your stove. I mean, you
You had to be
know,
able to ride a horse.
yeah, I talk a lot about this with testosterone. One of the arguments I make is that what if testosterone? Yeah, there's a bunch of environmental things that are knocking it down lower than it should be. But what if testosterone is environmentally dependent? When you need it, you get it. When you don't, you don't. Everything else, and and everything else in our biology is adaptive in this regard. Like you add a stress, the body goes, "Oh shit, we got a stress. Let's make sure we can deal with that stress." And you don't get it again. Our immune system effectively works on this principle. So there's no reason to think that perhaps testosterone is like, man, this is a pretty tame world. I'm gonna chill out for now because testosterone comes with like trade-offs. I mean, it's not the wonder. It's pretty damn wonderful, but it's not the wonder thing that it's made out to be. I mean, you increase your risk for certain things that occur. If what do we get?
Well, anything also that requires energy to produce, our bodies are super lazy. They'll try
Yes.
to not produce anything they cannot produce. And if it's like, hey, you don't need that to survive, well, we're going to stop producing it. Now, I have a picture of my ancestors. It's my great grandmother and her parents and brothers. And it's like 1890s roughly. And even the women look like they have more testosterone than your average kid. Like they're hard. Their eyes look hard. Their jaw is square, and they look like they were chiseled out of rock.
This is a hard life, man, but this is a very easy life, like so easy. Like, dude, I'm gonna go out when I get off this call. I'm gonna go out, flick a switch. My fireplace is gonna come on. That's a basic thing that like you needed, and you had to go chop wood for it. Now we just run a gas line in, and it's an aesthetic piece. Now you don't need it.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking to buy a farm out in the country. I don't know if you noticed this. You ever noticed that farm boys, they're all like mostly big and strong and taller and square jawed,
yep.
hard, because they're like, you're 5 years old, go milk the cows. You know,
go hunt something. You gotta you really it's a different life, and this life is not conducive to, or this life does not require that level of leadership. So instead, what we get to do now, is, part of it is focus on other problems, right? And some of those problems need to be handled. Like I always argue that the only reason slavery was abolished was because the Industrial Revolution occurred, and it just made more sense. I mean, this is why the South lost, like, because they could not compete technologically with the North. All right, so in that regard, when you have advances in your technology, you can deal with other issues, and you see that in parts of the world today that are behind. Good luck being a woman in India or Saudi. Not Saudi Arabia is a different story, but like good luck being a woman in India. There's a lot of things that they have to deal with, and then once clean water is not an issue, when people stop getting cholera and shit, like then they can worry about that. But in the West, where all that stuff is taken care of, now we get to focus on what we perceive as injustice. And I say perceive because sometimes we are correct, sometimes we are incorrect. But I think now the approach is so heavy-handed because everything does swing in a pendulum in this, or not in a pendulum, but I think everything is a gross overcorrection of the past. I learned looking at politics because this election. I mean, I think I've told you before. I don't care about politics, but because I just couldn't escape it, I went and learned probably more in this past year about the political system than I ever learned in my life prior. And
how disgusted are you?
But like. What I found is that every administration is more or less an overcorrection for the last administration.
Yeah.
And for all the people that complain about Trump, what they got to understand is they created him. Yeah. Look, if everyone was kind of doing their job and the BS wasn't popping off, then you wouldn't have to deal with Trump. And then when Trump comes, then the overcorrection now is Biden. Biden's not the problem. What's going to happen after Biden?
Well,
right?
That's going to be the overcorrection to all the Antifa riots.
Exactly.
Like people don't understand. I had an article written about me calling me a violent white supremacist because I said, "Hey, look out! you're creating a situation that's going to have blowback that you can't even imagine.
No one thinks.
Because I know some of the people that are going to make that blowback, and these are like real serious people. A lot of these are people that were trained by the U.S. government to do violence, and they're looking at it and they're going, the whole country is about to go up. We better do something. It's like you're pushing people to the point where they're going to risk everything to solve a problem that the government's throwing the fuel on the fire for.
And you know what's crazy? Like no one studies these things, and we can see it in our policy in the Middle East. We have very much so created terrorists that attack, like, and we thought we were doing a good. I don't even know if we thought we were doing a good thing. We thought we were doing what was in our best interest, is the best way to put it. And now there guys like, hold up, we got this shit now too. And these guys now they're bombing us, and we're gonna go fight. You know, basically how to create a terrorist 101 was everything that happened in the 2000s, and then what happened after in the last decade. Just unbelievable attacks across Europe and the United States, and who knows, right? Well, not who knows. We do know. We do know that an overcorrection comes because people don't think ahead, and when you think ahead, you may change what you do, but that also requires. It's funny how this comes all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, where you can start thinking, if I do this will happen in this time frame, and you don't have to do ad infinitum, right? Because no one can do that, but you should at least be able to think. It's like when you get into a fight. If you get into a fight on the street, you gotta think, what if I go to prison? This guy's got a gun. This guy retaliates. Okay, then I get shot. And then everybody else is like gonna get involved, and I'm gonna have to spend money dealing with this issue if it doesn't go. If I don't lose my life, and that money I spent could have been used for something else to advance, and now I'm stuck in this loop. All it takes is a little bit of future thought.
And you're thinking, you're not thinking about that while the guy's punching you, because you got no time to think then. You're thinking about that while you're at home thinking about going out.
Exactly.
Do I even want to go out to that place? Do I even want to go out to that place? Like, what is it? 80% of shootings happen within 50 meters of a nightclub.
Oh, man. I've actually never heard that stat, but I can believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, so civilian crime of passion type shootings are almost always happening near a nightclub.
Yeah.
Had a bit of alcohol, loud music, and stupid people all at the same time after midnight, and you got trouble. So a lot of it is, and this is part of the thinking in different times too, is that you have to, especially for men, we have to be more than one man. We have to be the executor who executes the plan. We have to be the planner who makes the plan. And then we have to be almost the dreamer who thinks into the far, far future.
Yep.
We have to be realistic about it, that at that point it's a dream because we don't have control. But we have to shift through that. Some men spend all their time in the dreamer stage. And then they never get anything done. Some men spend all their time in the planner stage. They make these big elaborate plans, never follow through. And some men spend all their time in the execution phase, but usually ending up executing someone else's plan or doing a lot of stupid stuff that gets them in trouble. As men, we have to spend the appropriate amount of time cycling through the three. Every Monday, I spend an hour or so in the morning thinking about what I want to get done this week. Every month at the beginning of the month, what do I want to get done this month? And then roughly every 3 months or so, like you said, I'll sit down and say, what's my next 3-month goal? And I'll be like, okay, I got X project to finish. This other one's done. I think for the next 3 months, I can take on 1 or 2 big projects or whatever it is. I don't know what those projects are going to be sometimes. The opportunity hasn't presented itself. But you got to have that executive function. You got to have the planning guy, and you got to have the dreamer, and you got to be all 3 of those if you're a man.
Yeah, you don't really, one of my favorite sayings, man, life is being a man is life on hard mode. You don't get to to relax. There's no safety net. The prison sentences are harsher. Like it's just, I mean, there's no, but you know but that's the trade off, right? That's the trade off for being strong and shit. I guess I don't know.
Well,
But
I think it is
the
that
logic.
men have been paying a lot of the costs of being a man, and we've not been reaping the rewards of it. And that's
Right.
our fault.
That's the
That's
problem.
our fault because we got the power too.
Yeah.
That's our. I don't think that's the fault for very young men because they're raised in with the environment that they're in. But with responsibility must come reward. And for men, it's been a little over 100 years. We've let women have exactly the same responsibility or rights as us. Well, they have half the responsibilities. If you don't believe me, if a woman throws up hands on a guy in a public place and the guy does it, is the result going to be different?
Right. It's a very different world, and we don't. I feel very like I think about guys like you who are raising sons because when I was being raised, the whole idea was like just something simple: don't hit girl. Okay, that is very simple. Implicit in that idea, the older you get, you realize, okay, I am stronger than her, so I should not hit her. But understood in that is that unless I really deserve it, like, and she shouldn't hit me. And even then, it's like a slap on the face because like I moved too fast or something crazy. But now, like, well, what are you supposed to teach a kid if a girl tries to knock his head off, or even worse, uh, fabricates and lies? And where are we gonna be with this? There's no. It's so. You know what it is? Not only is there, like you said, no responsibility, or rather, no reward for the responsibility, no benefit. You are actively punished, I believe, for assuming any role. At the very least, you leave yourself in a position of vulnerability, and so many guys, man, they're just checking out, and can you blame them? It's crazy if the whole idea of MGTOW, even as a fringe concept, right? Is crazy when you think about it, because that's like supposed to be the thing that we do. Like at the end of the day, like I get MGTOW like workers, guys that don't want to work or whatever, right? Or guys just want to get fat. But the whole idea of like the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. That is a crazy idea. But that's where we're at, and it's growing. That's what people. But they're not going to
Well,
justify.
and there are ways for men to make it worthwhile again. And I'll give you an example because I can tell other people what they should do, but it's better to talk about my own life.
Yeah.
So my male friends are all guys like me. I'm actually one of the least radical of my friends. And so my friends are like me. Their wives are all good women, and their kids are being raised similar to how I'm raising my son. So what ends up happening is my son has this great example. He's got his mom, but he's also got all of my friends' wives. So he knows what it means to be, that's a woman. Okay, I understand that's a woman. Outside the group women, they might be fine, they might not be. Who knows? But there's all these daughters of them as well. For some reason, most of my friends have daughters. So there's a lot of young girls being raised correctly, raised right, in their social circles from the time that they're very little. And so their standards of what they expect from women, what they expect to be feminine woman, are set very, very high. And their radar of picking up that woman's, she's not meeting the standards. And they can very quickly nope out of that situation and get out of there. And they don't, it's not going their own way. It's pick a woman and take her with you on your way.
Yeah, standards. There you go. Nah, that standard that no one sees, and where we linked up at the 21 Con in Poland, that was the subject of my speech. One of the harsh negatives that no one is thinking about in the future. Some are starting to pay attention. I think certainly a little more than 5 years ago is all of these we're celebrating single motherhood, which means by definition we are not celebrating, because you can't celebrate both. We are not celebrating nuclear family. I'm not so far as to believe that we're actually trying to dismantle it, but it is no longer a goal that people strive towards, I think, in mass, and is no longer even celebrated in media. That's usually a good sign. When things are being celebrated in the media or shown, that's how we know we're going. That's the direction society is going. That's what I found as a general litmus test to gauge the consciousness of the masses. We're at that point where certain things like the single motherhood thing, that's what's being celebrated, and so boys are growing up with double whammy. They're growing up without male figures to to emulate, to model themselves off of. The ones they do see are busted down, beaten down by the system, and they don't. I mean, they don't know what they. Because what would you know what to say? Like if you've been like, how could you in good faith, if you've been browbeaten by the divorce court, or you watch somebody else, or by child support law, you watch somebody else go through that, or you going through that, how can you in good faith tell your son to go and try again? I mean, you couldn't. I mean, you might tell them don't make my mistake, but what does that even mean? You don't even know what your mistake was.
Yeah, exactly. You don't,
Right?
if you don't know why you made that mistake.
So not only is this the boy being, he doesn't get the act of guidance, he's getting the act of brainwashing, because he's being told to act a certain way, to treat girls a certain way, regardless of how they behave. He's being told that his desires are unnatural, crazy. I mean, there's a whole group of people. I mean, they used to be small. They were around when I was in my early 20s, and now there's more of them who thinks that attractiveness is a social construct. Like they told you that you're not supposed to. You, it's not natural. What you like is a construct. You know, you can like plus size on it too. It's like, nah, it's just not healthy. You know, we're not into that. But all that combined, you know, you look at the numbers. You know, boys are like 5 times more. First of all, the ADHD diagnoses have gone up just a lot more, because now it's like if you can't sit still, in general, even though you're a
You
kid,
can't sit still in school. Yeah, because it's boring.
there's something wrong with you. But boys are like 5 to 1 diagnosed. So that to me is a big sign that treat them like defective girls. They're saying for every one boy, for every one girl, 5 are like we got to subdue 5 for them to get to that level of, which is like, when you look at it that way, kind of impressive. But that's not the point at all. The point is that there's no guidance. There's no guidance, and worse than no guidance, there's active brainwashing. And so
Mhm.
you have to counter. I mean, one of the coolest things about the community and the network across that I'm finding on social media and finding out like you is that they're like guys who see it, and even if they don't see it exactly, they got a bad feeling about it. Like they're looking and go, okay, well, I see what this is. I'm gonna try this and go this way and try that. So we'll see what the future holds. But the fundamental issue is this technology really is a real MF, man. It is a great thing. I love it, but it is just it's made life. It's changed life. You ever see Wally? Wally's a great example of like, it's a kid's story, but like it's a great example of what technology effectively is supposed to do. Make the creator of that technology relevant to the point of ineptitude. Like
If you
what
look, if you look to the really old elites, the aristocracy, for example, even the Queen, every year, now not so much anymore now that she's older, but every year her and her family would go out to the Highlands of Scotland, and they would spend a month where she cooked all the meals, and they lived like peasants in the Highlands.
huh?
No servants, no nobody. They took care of themselves. They looked after their own needs, and they do that for a month every year. The old aristocracy intentionally created discomfort for their children, and the new kind of aristocracy, the new elites, they don't really do that. And that's partly why they're acting so oddly right now, why they're trying to shake society so hard, is because they're afraid that they've gotten so soft that even as soft as the middle class is, it's still harder than them. And so we're in the middle class here, though. We're starting to turn into, like, we're living lives more soft than a king would have lived 100, 150 years ago.
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
Not even a question. Like every time it's too hot or too cold, I turn a knob.
Yep.
You know? And the poorest person has access to that.
Yeah.
Before, you was just hot in the mouth. I mean, I can't even. I went to the plantations, the old plantations down in New Orleans, and I went to New Orleans in August, which is like the worst time to go. And my first thought, walking around the plantation, I was like, God damn, it must have been hard being a slave. Like I mean, yeah, it's hard already. Like, yeah, all this work, whips and shit. But like, no way that shit. Like when I go work up a sweat outside, I go take a shower, lay in the AC. Like, nope. Here's some water because we ain't figured out refrigeration yet. So good luck finding some ice. Oh, and you don't have servants to fan you off, and I'm gonna need you to.
You are the servants that fan you off. Yeah.
So it's a different world, man. We live in a very easy society, and we'll see what the effects of that will be. The good news about it, though, if there's one shining beacon of positivity, is that it is given an outlet for people to recognize. Like, when you recognize something is wrong, you can go find other people who also recognize it's wrong and do something about it. You can make your entire life, and we're living proof of this, we'll make your entire life in this new thing and then have the choice. It's about choosing. Like once you wake up, look, man, if you choose to turn a blind eye to whatever thing and just, what was the old saying? Coined by Aaron Clary, enjoy the decline, right?
Yeah.
If you decide to go that route, okay, cool. But it's not like you're just operating on pure hedonism that has no idea. It's like living for the next day. It's like, I can't do anything about it, whatever, right? Obviously, I don't want to go try and build a family and fight against this. It's all from a position of choice. I have no issue with whatever path a person chooses. But when you are moving on reaction and you sound like you've been brainwashed, or rather, brainwashed.
It's absolutely brainwashing. Yeah, it's programming. I usually call it programming, because that's when agency comes in, is when you get in charge of your own programming, because we're all programmed. That's why, I reach my hand out like this and the other person reaches their hand back, because we're programmed to do that. That's perfectly fine. We're all programmed to some extent. And the question is who's in charge of that programming?
Yeah. And that's a big problem.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. We have a lot of power to make the changes ourselves. I think for a lot of us, we're going to have to intentionally create situations of suffering. Guys who start working out, their testosterone goes up. We know this scientifically.
Yep.
Guys who go to fight clubs and learn how to fight, their testosterone goes up. Why? Because you're probably right that this is what you need to survive, so you get some. We already know what the solution is on the individual level. And the issue is there's going to be people who decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to solve the problem for myself, and people that aren't. And that's going to make a bifurcation of society. And there will be people that they're just going to get old and die and disappear. Who's going to progress on to the future is those that go, now my kid's going to get a chance to suffer plenty.
Yeah,
in a good way, like positive suffering.
Exactly. It's gonna be controlled, and it's gonna be a choice. It's not gonna be, oh shit, we ain't got rent this month. That's not that's not something.
No, it's more like okay, go out and collect the chicken eggs and milk the goat. And they got chores to do. They got, okay, you wanna go to a little kid boxing club? Let's go. You want to work out with me? Because do some farmers walks, and you're tired. Okay, well, we're still going to take another 10 more steps.
Right.
That kind of stuff. And sorry, you're not going to watch 10 hours of screens a day because that's rotting your brain. You're going to, you're bored. Oh, that's perfectly fine to be bored. My grandfather used to say, being bored is good, because that's where everything creative comes from, is first starting out being bored. And then you have to create something to solve that problem. And those, I really, I help adults exclusively. I don't coach kids. And I help them. Basically, I do what their father never did for them. I help them to learn the things their father never learned. And that's what we're going to do to help people on the adult level and peer-to-peer. And then we're also going to work down towards our children. And we're not going to save the world or help everyone. We're going to help who we help.
And that's all you can do.
Yeah. And we got to be pretty comfortable that we can't help everybody, because otherwise it's you see people you can't help, it kind of tears you up inside a bit. And we have to be very comfortable with that we're not going to be able to help everybody.
No, and that's just, not everybody's meant to be helped. Look, selection pressures are exactly that, and they have always existed. And people are really uncomfortable with that idea in general. But that's a symptom, I think, of how soft things become. We're very uncomfortable with the idea that you're just accepting. You're not good enough to pass. You can't go to the next level, whatever that level is. You're good here, but you're not ready to go to the next part. You're not ready to move on.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's a good place to leave it. Go check out edlatimore.com if you're watching this and see what Ed has. He's got some great writing. You wrote a really good piece recently giving a suggestion of how single men raised by single mothers in harsh conditions can improve their lives and turn it around. I don't know if that's linked from your main site, but
it's not. Yeah, it's a guest post on another site. But if you just Google,
Google Ed Latimore, it's one of the top ones coming up right now.
Yes, it's a great. I'm really happy about that article. You just brain dump your thoughts and your perspective, and you can figure out quite a lot. I mean, because I didn't figure out a lot. It's what I went through, because I know the problems with that, and I know where the weaknesses were that I had. I mean, self-awareness is really valuable.
Yeah, and it lines right up with my experience dealing with underfathered men and what they have done for success and what I've helped some other men do. So it's absolutely a great article to read. Go check that out. Check out edlatimore.com. Thanks very much for joining us today, Ed.
Hey, no problem, man. I really appreciate you having me.
It's great. And looking forward to the next time you come to Portugal. We can have a coffee together.
Yeah, well, we should be back sometime. Whether they lift the ban or not, once I get married, I can come over whenever I want. So.
Awesome. Great.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
That's it.
Thank you for watching our video, and I hope it inspired you to take action in your life. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video to get more agency building content. The real secret sauce is in our newsletter. Click on the link in the video description below to sign up. I promise I won't flood your inbox, and anything that we do send you will be of high value.